And we're live, and it is the BetaSaaSers Hangout, and here we are. I'll just pull up the agenda and go to screen share. We've got Richard and Luciano and Paul and Sampri here with us. Here we go, desktop 1, my favorite. Great to see Luciano here.
Hello.
Luciano, you were going to share some
Yes,
additional
yes,
aspect exercises.
yes. How I proceed? Could I share the zip file with you via Skype, or do you want me to?
Are they? I mean, yeah. What's your usual mechanism of share? Like, I mean, for me, the simplest way would be to put them into Dropbox and then
Dropbox.
share the Dropbox link. But if you're not a regular Dropbox user, or do you use any cloud sharing?
Yes, I have, but I have to set up and share with. Yeah,
Well,
that's why. If you already have something, probably it's better. If I
well,
share.
I mean, you can email it to me, and I can do it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I will do it.
I mean,
I
the
will.
thing that I have is, oh, that's the wrong thing. You know, I have it set up with Dropbox so that I basically have a public folder, and anything I drop in there, I can instantly get a link to that people can access. So, anyway, yeah, no, well, great. So I guess I don't think anybody's added anything to the agenda. Does anybody care to add anything right now? If they don't, I'll just mention again, we've got this hybrid instructors little thing I put up, which is just for us trying to consolidate a list of kind of the key user stories for our little undertaking. I don't know if you saw this the week before last, Luciano, but so I've got one down here, you know, attributed to you, which is you were particularly concerned about students being confident about testing Rails with RSpec, and you were concerned, as I think was Rose, about there not being a good reference on the RSpec with Rails.
Yeah.
So we've added that there. I'm trying to pin Armando down on the importance of, you know, grading the work on a server. Or, you know, we're having more auto-grader fun at the moment. Yeah, so we would, you know, from various discussions. So anyway, I mean, if there are anything that you know, anyone think like as an instructor, things that you would like, you know, and for what purpose, it would be great to collect more stories. Sampriti I was having a discussion with Sampriti earlier on, who's one of the our Agile Venture developers, about the value of actually grading the work on the server. And I was saying, you know, like there are so many different ways to cheat anyway. It doesn't seem like the fact that you grade the students' work on a server is maybe taking you that much further. Sampriti was making the point that people could, you know, if they've got the grader running on their own machine, they can just fake the RSpec output or something. I was going to say Sampriti, you know, if they've got the grader running on their own machine, they don't even need to go as far as to fake the RSpec output. They can just, you know, intercept the transmission and say, right, I'm gonna, if as in the course, as in I think many Coursera courses which have you know, on student machine graders, it just sends back like a percentage to say what score the student got on the homework. So if you hack the protocol, you can just get in there and say, right, I got 100 instead of I got, you know, 75. So it's, you know, if you can hack the protocol, it's no big deal. But I guess, yeah, for me, I wonder how much that really buys over the fact, you know, that students can be just sharing their work with each other anyway, or find a solution searching online. But anyway, there we go. So I guess I don't immediately have anything to add to this list of user stories. If no one else does, we'll.
I mean, the thing that I'm wondering about is are these user stories the sort of right way to request like some of the auto grader features if the auto grader is, I mean, I guess presuming that the auto grader is running on a server that we're having some of these issues.
Which ones?
Well, I guess, I'm sorry, some of the old issues of being able to see student submissions,
Yeah,
and be able, and penalties, and
right.
all sorts of things.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think there's a good one here, actually, that we've got, so that I can help my students effectively. I want to see the complete submission that my student made along with all feedback.
Right. Okay. For instance, that's a very broad way of saying, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to. I mean, I think we've got some of these things, in pivotal requests. I think there's, this is part of my ongoing attempt to communicate these things to and I think there's an extent to which, as user stories, they might have more impact on some people, on some engineers, and some, MOOC lab directors. Who knows? But I think there's also, a question of looking at some of these things, and seeing which things, if any, are in conflict. I'm particularly keen to uncover the logic behind the way things being set up as they are, and test, do they really need to be set up that way? But
yeah.
But there's, I mean, you want to. I think you would agree, and I'd agree. I would like to, I think, and I don't think anybody would disagree even, that in order to help our students, we'd like to be able to see everything that they submitted and all of the feedback that the grader gave them, so that when they say, help, it doesn't work, we can instantly see what's going on, right?
Right. And in fact, if we have a local grader, it just pushes the question off. If they are encountering problems, then we would have to come up with a scheme for them to submit, individually, I guess, their whatever it was that they submitted, maybe a whole hierarchy, and also.
No, but I mean, having the grading run locally doesn't prevent all of their code and their spec and their results being submitted and collected on the server. The question is, I mean, there is more about like where the specs where the analysis actually runs. If you know what I mean.
Yes, I do, but so you're thinking that if,
like, it seems to me in the ideal world, at least in my ideal world, which may not be everybody else's ideal world, is that what would happen is a student does their work on their own machine, and they have on their own machine a mechanism for testing whether they've succeeded or not, that gives them instantaneous feedback. There's no waiting, right? They get their instantaneous feedback about, how well they've done, and it comes back instantaneously, and they can run it as many times as they like without, any care in the world. And, when they're ready to submit, they can just say, right, it's working now. Any time that they can press a button and submit the contents of what they've got to the system to indicate this is what they're up to. And so, I mean, yeah, there is a point there about, you could have a student where they were repeatedly checking something and they were saying to us, look, it doesn't work, and so whatever, and we'd have to say, well, have you submitted it to the system so that I can look at it as well? And they may have forgotten to do that or what have you. So
right, and I guess all I'm thinking is that the point where you say, oh, the student presses a button, it's not clear to me if we have local graders whether that sort of puts the pressure off of an edX solution to pressing a button to submit so we can see the results.
Yeah.
So I think it maybe pulls us away from that, which also pushes us toward individual solutions. I mean, individual ways for the instructors to say, okay, show me your work, whether we do that.
Right.
I mean, only when students are having problems.
Yeah. No, you could have individual solutions there where the student just shows you this, that, or the other. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, there's the model that Coursera has where you basically do your submissions from the command line, and you just say, you type the word submit, and it does a local check, and it sends up some whatever metrics and the system. And I've yet to hear like a really strong argument for why that isn't just the sensible way to go. But anyway.
Does Coursera let the instructor see, like, or is it on a case-by-case basis?
I don't know. I don't
submit.
know.
Okay.
I don't know about that. So I'm just, this is the things from Luciano. But I mean, in print, there's nothing in principle that would prevent the nothing that would prevent Coursera doing that. I mean, I guess we're struggling with you know, rogue runaway processes on the graders this week. That's taking up a lot of time, and it brings me again back to saying, like, you know, what's this all for? But anyway,
Right.
but is there something else? But independently of that, was there something you were sort of saying there, that, like, there's another key thing you want to be able to see their submissions, and then I guess
Well, the thing is, I mean, I like the idea of the local grading for the most part, but as I was just thinking it through, you know, when this one of the things that I had early on when I had my own auto grading system, was that the students would submit, and with literally just the click of a button, I could see their submission and see the auto grader results, and it was just so much easier to help students.
Yeah, no, and that's, I think that's captured in this.
Yeah.
What we'd like.
So the thing, and I was just, so it was just sort of crossing my mind that if we do the local auto grader, that sort of removes that.
Well, it could, depending on the way in which you do the local auto grader. If you do the local auto grader so that it is done like the Coursera one, where the student, in order to, you know, get something, they type submit, then that basically will mean that they will, whenever they do it, it will still submit the latest version of their code and the you know, the output from the system, and you still have that. I mean, I think whether Coursera provides that or not, if you use the Coursera mechanism, you could enforce that a local submitting process. I mean, that would remove the potentially the nice aspect for the student. They might be able to run the grader independently of having a network connection. But assuming that we say, right, well, as long as you have to have a network connection, they would then.
So, and part of it is a sort of a non-technical issue that I'm thinking that if we gravitate more to local auto graders, that sort of takes the pressure off of, you know, the extra features for the server auto grader, which would allow us to see student submissions. So I know it can be done technically.
Oh, well, I don't know. I would say that's, you know,
it's independent.
I would say that they're two separate things, and I would say, you know, we want to provide to the instructors the ability to see apps. As an instructor, me personally, like, I mean, for example, I was teaching this a NAND to Tetris course, right? And so the NAND to Tetris course, basically, they give out the specs for, you know, which are not the solutions, but they basically give out acceptance test specs with every homework, right? Yeah, and so the students can run that locally, and I would ask my students to submit to me, send me your working code, and it worked. You know, that was all just fine and dandy, and they all seemed very happy at the ability to basically work along and check whether at any stage their thing was working. So, you know, I mean, I guess we could sort of say, as a student, you know, so that I can check my work without delay, I would like to be able to run tests locally. But I was going for, I mean, I think we all agree that this would be great. Was there some other thing, like, you would like about checking for student cheating behavior and this, that, and the other? Was the
For me, I was more concerned about someone being able to help students efficiently and effectively.
Yeah. No, well, and that's my, yeah. Anyway, so we don't have to spend more time on that. As thoughts come to us, we can add to this list of, you know, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's nice, you know, to inform our discussions, as it were, to have a top-level description of all of the things that we want, and then we can kind of say, well, actually, this, you know, work about which are the higher priority things, which are the, anyway. Okay, so I guess we don't really have much on the agenda apart from to mention that, you know, the MOOC 2 is about to go live. I think I've got everything in place. I'll probably push that out later on this evening now. The Oracle of Bacon homework is, we've made a few changes to that I think are minor improvements, and that will go live on Thursday. And then the big work next week is kind of trying to reorder the legacy homeworks. Dave and Armando kind of agreed with me that it makes sense to reverse the order of them so that the bug fix thing comes before the adding the completely new feature. Although I now rue the day because now I'm the one who's got to like make it all consistent and work and make all the files make sense. But yeah, so you know, if you know anybody who's like a fantastic Linux server administrator and can help us understand why certain Ruby processes are getting detached from the main grader and hanging around and basically causing us trouble, then you know, do put us in touch. But yeah, I think we did told them we just worked out that this is not using the latest develop code. So I guess if I was feeling like I wanted to live dangerously, I could force the grader here up onto the develop code and see if that had any effect, because we don't seem to have this at least superficially, we don't seem to be getting this kind of hanging processes on the develop server.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, anything else that anybody wants to discuss as part of autograders or BetaSaaSers, or I guess Luciano and Richard, your courses have finished and you're reasonably happy and enjoying a relaxing summer.
Yeah.
In my case, I'm still lagging behind. The course will be. I have to wrap up the course.
Okay.
This week. Yeah.
Yes. Right.
And then
okay. Right. Yes. And well, any further? I mean, I've just got your. So you've got your exercises. Is this something? Are these exercises that they could be shared on GitHub, or do they need to be kept sealed?
Yeah. My concern is that I haven't contacted the guys
who created these?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. That's the first thing, and otherwise, I don't have any problem to share.
Okay. Oh, well, yeah. If you could, I wasn't sure what form this is in. I see this is in a standard, like a little. I mean, I can kind of go onto the desktop here. Can I go to the desktop here? Why can't I go to the desktop here? Surely there's desktop CD. Oh, it's because.
Yeah, it is.
And I can run RSpec here.
Yeah, that's it.
But this is, so it's in a form of, there's a series of failing things, and I need to go through, this is an exercise for your students. And
that's it.
Right, and to go through, and so for example, we could take this and turn it into a grader, right? So we could have this as a homework that people submitted and that was graded in the cloud for you. Is that something that you'd be interested in having?
Me?
You or indeed any other? I mean, this is something that you handed out to your students as extra.
Yes, no, that's something that I gave them, and they started practicing during the course and during the lecture, and I was moving around and something additional, and then they were prepared for the homework. Yeah, that's a warm up.
Sure, right. It's a warm-up exercise. But part of, I think, Armando's bigger vision is that, exercises like this created by lots of different people could be, there'd be like, the graders would support a wide range of these things. And then you could kind of take your pick and you could be checking your progress, for all the students on these things.
Yeah, that might be interesting, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to rush to doing it. I just, seeing this as a kind of like a set of things, I can imagine. I mean, one that we could store. I mean, like if we look at what some of the homeworks, like the stuff that we've got in. I go to GitHub, SaaSbook homework. If we look at what Ruby Calisthenics is, for example, actually maybe I should do it on the. If we look at the skeleton thing, it's just a libspec. It's just another one of these, right? So
the format is very similar.
Yeah. So cool. Anyway, well, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, double check if it's something that the original creators are happy to share on, and it'd be nice to. I think rather than I've shared the link and I put the link in so that the other instructors can access it. But yes, if that's something that we can just make available through the SaaSbook thing as some cool RSpec exercises, that any instructor can come along and use independently of whether they find this page and my Dropbox, then that would be cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. I don't know how the autograder is implemented. The only question I have is if you are using a kind of sandbox or
Yes.
something. Ah, okay. That's why you have to stay with Ruby 193.
Well, I don't think in the long run we don't have to stay with Ruby 193. I think in the short term we've chosen to stay with Ruby 193 for, staying off the bleeding edge. But I think the plan is in spring 2015 to upgrade to Ruby 2 and Rails 4.
Ah, okay. It is already planned. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's planned in as much as I think that's the point after which Ruby 193 will become. They're not doing any security fixes for after that point.
Yes.
And so it's we sensibly need to do that. I think Armando is going to reteach that. I think he what he told me was that he's booked to teach the course again for Berkeley. Like, he doesn't teach it every semester at Berkeley. They kind of alternate, but he's booked to teach it for Berkeley 2015. So I think he's spring 2015. So he's kind of, in his mind, it's like, the current materials and the current stuff will be used until the end of this year, right? So the full courses would be the same, somewhat polished material that we've been using so far, and then in spring 2015, it will be, a kind of probably not a radically different course. I mean, I think, but a bigger jump, and hopefully there's going to be lots of I don't know, like I'm sure he's going to add lots of extra incentives to make help me and the autograder team want to go through the pain of upgrading to Rails 4 and Ruby 2 for him. But yeah, I'm sure he'll think of exciting incentives for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, there you go. I mean, I kind of and partly, I mean, some of the things that I've been doing. So, like, by pulling the parts of the homeworks into the public view, I'm trying to make the whole thing overall more maintainable. In as much as, for example, if we get, if these homeworks and the skeletons are there, then, some of the students can help by saying, oh, look, there's this fix and that fix and so on. And that means I can then review them and pull them in and so on. So I'm kind of trying to get the whole system set up for, like, better long-term maintenance. I'm just the autograder at its heart is I don't know, it's a bit of a legacy mess is the word I would almost use. So I do shudder about trying to maintain it long term, and I'm trying. That's partly what motivates me to say, can we do, like, more? I think even just providing, even if we're still using the autograder, we could still provide more extensive specs to the students so that they can do more of the testing locally, and then that takes the pressure off the autograders and the pressure off me to make it run perfectly all the time. But you can see here, this thing that we're doing here, this is precisely this is the edX autograder running in the cloud, or the autograder that we're running, and so these are these little sandboxes that are each here grading a version of homework 4, and usually they're supposed to shut down relatively quickly, or within 5 minutes there's a timeout, and for some reason they're not dying. But yeah. I wonder if I mean I've probably got to move on now. As I said, Paul and Sam Pretty, if you've both got a bit of time, could you spend some time, like, just submitting pairs of homeworks to the develop box to see if you can?
Yeah, I was thinking of that because when I was testing it, I just submitted one homework.
One at a time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could do that, and that would be very helpful. If you can replicate, then at least maybe you can move towards working out what the set of circumstances is that causes it. I mean, you could even try. No, that doesn't work. But if you can't replicate it, then that gives a sort of a strong argument that maybe I force the staging grader onto the develop thing and I reboot, and maybe that takes care of the problem. And if it doesn't, then I guess we're into a hacky script to just kill these grade 4 processes after they've been after they go into this kind of strange sleep state.
with so I'm running back on RAG, and I'm just running, like on my local. I'm running the specs. Run with timeout. I can get it to fail if I run it many times in succession.
When you say fail in what form?
The spec.
Oh yeah, no. The one that we've got that spec that tests for. So we've got what is that spec? We've got the spec for here, which tries these different things. Yeah, I mean this has become. I mean this was me looking for this kind of race condition, and it seems to have become. It seems very platform dependent. I think we still don't have the code underneath this as stable as it could be. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's ways that this gets exited and the thread doesn't. But I mean, the critical thing really is, independently of how this runs one way on my OS X and so on, is that we need to be running that on Ubuntu 14 and in the same circumstances. I mean, I guess, were you saying you couldn't get it to run in the
Yeah, none of the R specs seem to run for me. Like,
that's developed, I think.
Okay.
I hope. Is it developed?
95.
No, that was production. So it runs on production.
And I can get it to run, but if I run it like 10 times by hitting up arrow enter 10 times while it's running, then I can start getting some intermittent failures.
If you're running it multiple times in parallel, I would have thought that would do strange things.
I mean, I wouldn't think it's parallel, but...
well, you can just hit if you do it one time after another. Like, if you do it like this...
Up arrow enter.
And you just do it a few times.
While it's running, yeah. I mean, it'll...
When you say while it's running, but like restarting it... But you're running it in sequence. You're not restarting. You're not running in parallel.
It's in.
Right, but you're saying is if you run it enough times, you can get a.
Right, and it may only need like a 10th of a second or a 100th of a second in between. So that's why.
I guess the issue is the issue is here is like I mean I think it depends on there's definitely like a potential race condition underneath here like. With this. Anyway, I think I need to wrap up. I'm sure Richard and Luciano are fascinated with this. Look into the bowels of the autograder. If you are free over the summer, Richard and Luciano, we'd love to have any spare engineering cycles that you have. Could easily be burnt up. Trying to understand how this grader works and make it work better. But
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but so we continue to work around the clock for your benefit. You are the clients. We will have stable autograders. It's all for you. But that's partly why I want the user stories is because since we put there's a lot of effort that goes into different parts of the autograder. The question is where should all that effort be going? Anyway, was there any other critical business before we wrap up for another week?
All good.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much for sharing, Luciano. Yeah, look forward to hearing about the further shareability of those RSpec exercises. I'll be back online a little bit later on to release MOOC 2 and send emails and things, but gonna have to drop out now. But Paul and Sampriti, if you can test and do a parallel hit on the develop server and let me know what happens, I'd be very grateful.
I get the same problem on the develop as well. Like when I run the RSpec in parallel for the timeout spec, 50% of the time the specs fail.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is that's quite interesting. What's not clear is how, if at all, a failure there with the run with timeout is related to how these hanging things. So. But do keep it investigating, but do try and see if you can, through some mechanism. Yeah. Well, I mean, I leave it up to you. I mean, I think what we really need is kind of like a load testing framework that allows us. I mean, ideally, what we want is a load testing thing that allows us to kind of simulate firing many submissions at the develop server. So you could. I mean, this is this thing that we've had hanging for a long time. Is we know that approximately this is what the submission from the when the edX system is running, and it goes and grabs, when the grader is running, it goes and grabs this kind of thing from the queue. If there was some way that we could sort of simulate a load test on develop by just setting up some special RSpec test in a different directory or something that would just kind of do this incoming a number of times or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'll leave it in your hands and I'll check back in with you in a few hours.
Or right. Do you want to continue on this at the moment, or? Hello?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Sounds like tools up for it. All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast there.